It's about when I was in grad school at Harvard and I met a guru. And I was searching, seeking. I started off in Eastern, actually I started off in like Voodoo and Santeria and all these other religions. And I didn't like them because their gods were evil and worse than our own. And so then I started getting into Eastern religions, where you look at the light, you go into the light, you meditate towards the light. I started having great experiences. So I wanted more and more and more. And then someone said, well, you have to start working towards enlightenment, if you want to go merge, and, you just want the highest experience. And so I had to find a guru. So I started looking for a guru, and in that then, I found Mama. Hey, Desiree. Come have a seat if you have a moment. Okay. I'm just telling a little bit, I'm going to read from the book in a minute. And she used to be one of my students too. So I met this guru, and she gives hugs, and she's actually a really living person. And Indians believe that she's an avatar, which is a goddess, or a god, or one of their gods or goddesses in a body, so that she came down from wherever they are and take on a body. And she did demonstrate powers and stuff like that. And so when I met her, I was just blown away. So I shut down my life at Harvard and went to India. 3 weeks later, I was in India. And so the book then is about just the journey in India, what it's like, and the craziness of it all, because it was all really very, very crazy. And it goes, Maya, have you seen her? Alice asked me in a melodramatic hushed tone. Alice, Aneshwari and I were sitting in the women's dormitory on Aneshwari's bunk. Alice and I were talking as Alice sparked up my peanuts and I plied her for gossip. Not that it took too much. Alice loved gossip. Further, I had given her freedom with my peanuts, and peanuts were the bribery tool of choice for Alice. Aneshwari was ignoring us. Her focus was on Chama, of course. She was busy peeking out the window at the head of her bunk. She had a highly coveted resting spot, a bunk with a direct view of Chama's quarters. She could observe Chama's comings and goings at all times. For over a year, so I had been told, Aneshwari had bided her time, patiently waiting until the previous occupant of the bunk had grown too sick to stay in India and was forced to return to the United Kingdom. The moment the bunk had opened, Aneshwari had seized the opportunity and taken the bunk. For the prize, she had to beat a couple of women down and bribe a few others. The only real competition, though, had been Alice. I could not help but wonder at Alice's motivation. Had she joined in the race for the bunk merely to create competitive tension, or for amusement, or just because she could? Not that she actually cared about Chama's goings-on. Apparently, as the story went, when Aneshwari and Alice had squared off for the bunk, Alice would not capitulate. Bribing had not worked with her, nor had hitting her. Finally, Aneshwari had dissolved into a mass of inconsolable tears. After 4 straight hours of Aneshwari's profuse weeping, Alice had given up the bunk, showing no emotion one way or the other. So there we were, Alice, Aneshwari, and I, an odd grouping. I was not sure I liked being grouped with her. Alice and I were enjoying a moment of rest and gossip between a weekly residential darshan and evening bhajans. Darshan is when you go see the guru, and in Hinduism they believe that every time you see a guru, or they call them divine beings, then every time you see them, it takes you closer to enlightenment. It burns off your karma and you move closer. And then every time if you touch them, it burns off more karma. The one I was with, actually, she was Fayetteville, so they believed it burned off the most karma. And then to live in an ashram, they believed that meant you were going to get enlightenment in this lifetime and basically cease to exist. You wouldn't be reincarnated over and over again. And so, let's see. I'm just going to skip a bit. If one had looked down, one would have seen Rukmini below, watching from the garden, hiding her gaunt yet hulking frame behind a palm tree. She too is watching, waiting. Does she think she's invisible, hiding behind that palm tree? I shook my head no. Her who? You know, the crazy lady. You must have seen her, Alice whispered even more melodramatically than Peanuts, if that was at all possible. I shook my head no again. I studied Alice, the narrow brown eyes darting hither and thither, the mouth with a pronounced overbite, munching away at the peanuts, the mousy brown hair caught up in a loose ponytail, limp and greasy from infrequent washings. Alice did not seem to notice the scrutiny. You know, the lady who walks around and around and mumbles to herself. Alice shoved another handful of peanuts into her mouth. Aneshwari interjected, not losing her focus from her vigil one bit. Oh, you mean crazy Kartika. Yeah, munch. Her. I've seen her, I think, I answered, my forehead wrinkled in thought. She's the lady who walks around like a zombie, her clothes half hanging off of her. My mind, along with Aneshwari's analysis, went to the woman. The woman, Kartika, was memorable. Once you saw her, you would never forget her. She was average height, average weight. However, it was her looks that burned her into memory. She had the appearance of pure, unmitigated insanity. Her madness was neither outwardly nor inwardly directed. It was not directed at anyone, because no one was at home to direct it at all. Kartika was 120% out to lunch. What had happened to make her this way? Her eyes failed to tell the story. They were frighteningly vacant, always, staring at something or someone no one else saw. Rarely did she blink. Never did she focus. She walked with a lopsided gait, favoring the left side. Shuffling, shuffling, shuffling. Wherever she was, she paced back and forth, back and forth. She never ran into anyone, probably because everyone walked a wide arc around her. No one wanted to come into contact with her body or even be near her. But once upon a time, white sari was now an indefinable grayish color with large faded splotches of reddish-brown rust spots. It was crumpled, old, and threadbare. She draped it around her body as if she did not care whether it was there or not. Some days it made it halfway over one shoulder. Other days it hung limply about her waist, almost suggestive and obscene, as if had she not been so scarily disconnected and vacant, so decidedly insane. I saw her yesterday, I recall, walking back and forth in the bathroom wing. I know, Aneshwari confirmed. She often walks there or up on the balcony of the temple. I know what, Alice said excitedly. Let's go and see if we can find her. Let's go watch her. Okay, I responded quickly and jumped off the bed. I don't know. Aneshwari was more reluctant, instead wanting to stay and watch for Chama. She was not one to neglect her favorite pastime. Oh, come on, let's you and I go, Maya, Alice said, grabbing a handful of peanuts from the jar on the bunk before she headed off. Where are we going? I asked, trotting double time to keep up with her. To the bathrooms on the 3rd floor. That's where I saw her earlier today. She doesn't change where she is once she gets there. I've seen her walking at 4 in the morning and then hours later still be walking back and forth in the same spot. Not stopping, not doing anything but walking. I wonder. I can almost hear Alice's mind churning along with her mouth chewing peanuts. I wonder. You saw her by the bathrooms yesterday? I confirmed. And I saw her there today. I wonder if she ever left. Maybe she's been there since yesterday. I don't know. My voice trailed off weakly. The idea of being that crazy scared me. I did not like the thought, so I pushed it away. I followed Alice up the stairs and around the corner to the bathrooms. Ugh, I hate these stalls. It's so nasty here. The 3rd floor toilet stalls were so much dirtier than the ones on the top floor. I tried to avoid them and just use the nicer, cleaner ones at the top, but sometimes it could not be avoided. We crept up to the row of toilet stalls and peered around the corner. I avoided touching the nasty, filthy walls. I wish my feet did not have to touch the floor, even though they were in chappals. There she is, Alice whispered with excitement, her eyes glittering ever so slightly. Was all I ventured to say. There she was indeed, pacing slowly, ever so slowly, lopsidedly. One measured step, lean. Another measured step, lean. Her feet were broad and flat, the toes splayed out as though she had walked too many nights. The soles were cracked all around, painfully cracked, with deep, dirt-encrusted fissures. Her sari was threadbare and dirty, which was to be expected. It was wrapped loosely, carelessly about her body. The portion that normally would have been draped around one or both of a woman's shoulders was sloppily tucked in around her waist. Her choli, which is a top, was too big and looked too bare without the sari draped over it. It did not matter because what would have been alluring with the same woman? With Kartika was frightening and ominous. Everything about her hinted at an internal torture, a never-ending nightmare that dared anyone to come close and risk contracting whatever it was she had. She did not mind that no one ever went near her. She was not aware of anyone anyway. If you stood in her way, she would slowly walk around you as if you were a fire hydrant sitting in the middle of a path. She held conversations with herself, her eyes blank and unfocused. Sometimes she drooled while she mumbled. She never bothered to wipe the drool, as she was not even aware enough to perceive the fact that she was drooling. She was horribly frightening, revoltingly mesmerizing. What happened to her? I asked, partially awed, partially revolted. Alice looked back at me incredulously. You mean you've never heard what happened to her? Unfortunately, Alice and Maya could not see into the spirit realm. If they could have, they would have seen the demons that swirled around and through and in Kartika. She was a place of residence for them. The leader of them, Insanity, whispered random suggestions to her all day long. If they could have seen into the spirit realm and into the past, they would have seen the events that precipitated her madness. They would have observed the willful and willing letting down of subconscious walls that protect most people from outside spirits. They would have seen the opportunistic invasion of evil spirits into her body. Years ago, she had laid herself wide open.